Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Some years feel like the perfect storm. Maybe it starts off dry, then the rain won't quit, which brings disease and bugs, and now the temperatures are dipping as low as the markets, and your stress has never been higher. All of this feels out of your control, and it is. But what if you knew you could weather the perfect storm year? With Global Ag Risk Solutions, perils, inputs, and revenue are covered, and that means you can farm exactly the way you want, no matter what the world throws at you. Get a quote at agrisksolutions.ca.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. We have an amazing guest today, Ashlyn George, and she is the founder of the blog, The Lost Girl's Guide to Finding the World.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here too. So I wanted to have Ashlyn on because she has such a great story and a very strong connection to farming. So on that note, can you just tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll dive into all the good stuff?
Sounds good. So born and raised on a grain farm in Saskatchewan. Parents are still actively farming today, so I get out and help out whenever I can, but I am not active on the farm with them. But yeah, after university, I designed a 5-year travel plan to see the world on the road for 6 months every year for 5 years. Traveled to all 7 continents, 60 countries, and then now today, I guess I'm a content creator, travel writer, a few different titles.
That's amazing. So you grew up on the farm in Saskatchewan. What area?
Kind of east central, along Highway 16.
Okay.
Near a really tiny community, kind of an hour west of Yorkton.
Okay. We're not trying to track you down or anything, but I know the audience is like, where does she farm?
Yes.
Tell us, right? You know how farmers are. Go to that farm and turn this way. So
totally.
We got to get the details. Okay, so that's perfect. And your family farms, and you decided to go to university to be a teacher.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went through university,
yeah.
And I'm curious. I just want to know everything. I love travel. For those of you guys that know me know that. I'm curious how it all came together. So you went to university. Did you have the idea to travel while you were going to school? What was the plan?
So it's actually kind of interesting how it all happened, because I had a friend in university who she really wanted to travel, and she wanted to do a year abroad. And I was kind of like, oh, I just moved to the city, a year or 2 ago. I'm just getting used to this. Why would you ever want to travel? And then all of a sudden now today, I've spent so much time on the road. But I think I went into university actually for medicine.
Oh, okay.
And I did all of my courses to apply to write the MCAT, with the exception of the physics class. And by that time, I had done so many different science classes and labs that I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And so then I transitioned. I
don't blame you.
Yeah, right? And then I transitioned into education, but at that time, I'd always felt like I'd been so driven to medicine that I had never really considered other career paths, and I felt pressured to pick something. But that being said, I'm definitely a teacher. I just teach outside of a classroom now.
True.
And I teach to the public through my blog, right? It's an educational thing to share parts of the world with people. Anyway, after university in the summer I convocated, I had a job interview fall in my lap. And so I went to this interview, and when I walked out of it, all what I could think of was, please don't give me this job, which is usually not what you think when you leave a job interview.
Yeah.
Not that it wouldn't have been bad or anything, and if I had gotten it, I would have stepped into the role of teacher, no problem, but I just felt like that wasn't my driving passion in the moment. That being said, I didn't know what it was. That's kind of the reason behind the name The Lost Girl's Guide to Finding the World, is not only because I lose things everywhere around the world, but I just didn't know what the next step was for me, and I didn't know what to do to find it or figure it out. And then oddly enough, travel became the thing that helped me find my path.
Isn't that ironic though? And I mean, you're not the only one. For those that know from a young age and go through school and go for it, good for you.
That is amazing.
But I think that is the small minority.
Yeah.
And most people, you hopefully go to school for the right thing if you go, and then you get out and you hopefully like that thing, but who knows? I think honestly you take your life learning, right? And figuring out what you like.
And that's exactly what it was for me. So it became, I spent 5 years learning in an institution, and then so my first trip was 6 months to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji. Super easy. I could look Australian until you hear my Canadian accent, and everything's in English. And there I discovered how much more of the world there actually was. Like, you grow up in a small, tiny community, and that's normal, that's every day, and you really don't understand how big the world is until you start experiencing different countries and cultures and places. And so for me, that was really like life-changing. I feel like that's a cliche to say, but it really was. So then 5 years learning in an institution, and then I figured I could spend 5 years learning in the world. That is equally as valuable as, what we view standard education is today.
Amen.
So it was some very clever budgeting.
Oh yeah.
But I made it work.
You did 6 months or a year the first time?
6 months the very first trip. And then each year after that, it was still 6 months. I would come back to Saskatchewan. I worked for the city of Saskatoon for 9 seasons. I drove a tractor and operated equipment for them. Yeah, in the parks department and turf. And so it paid quite well, and I'm a fierce budgeter.
Nice.
Yes, so I paid off my student loans while I was traveling and making it happen. So yeah.
So how did the idea first come to you about traveling? Was it your friend, or where did that?
I think back to that often, and I don't fully know.
It wasn't a moment?
I have a bucket list.
Okay.
And at the time, it was a little bit smaller than it is now. And I think one of the things I really wanted to do was kind of chase the sun for a year. So skip winter, see the sun 12 months of the year. Yeah. And I think that was part of it, what encouraged me to go for that 6 months. And then I think a girl I worked with had been to Australia, and I can't remember now if that might have influenced it. Just knowing she had been there, it was obviously an easier country to travel around in. And I think just the ease of going to Australia seemed manageable. But yeah, it's so funny thinking back there, trying to put myself in that same mind space.
Yeah.
Things have changed so much.
Yeah, quite a few years have gone by.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Okay, so you started the blog. When did that come into the picture? And the reason I ask, as you know, and you're quite involved in the egg industry still, your family farms, but as we all know, telling our story as farmers has become a big thing and is getting more and more important. So one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is you have built a massively successful blog telling your story and educating. So I want to really figure out how that started and chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, so my blog was just a passion project to begin with. So many people were asking me questions about travel, and instead of answering everybody individually, which I still do today anyway, it hasn't really changed, but I figured I could carve out my own little corner of the internet and share the information out there, and if people were either interested in my stories or interested in the practical side of what I was doing, they could come there to find that. So that was after my 3rd year of traveling. I spent a summer working on my blog, and I knew nothing about marketing at this time, but I actually did like a launch. I wrote 30 articles and uploaded them, and then didn't ever publicize anything until I think it was in October of 2013. I was like, today is the day I'm launching my website, and then everybody could tune in and read a lot of different articles, not just one article being welcome to my blog.
Smart.
And it was just a passion project, and so I did that the next year and a half. And actually, because of my blog, the government of Saskatchewan has a really cool program called the Saskatchewanderer, and they hire a travel blogger for the year every year to go promote the best of living, working, and playing. And that's also connected me with the Ministry of Agriculture in Saskatchewan too, and has laid the groundwork for some of the work I've done in the agriculture industry now. So they hired me as a professional blogger in 2015, and then at the end of that year, that was my leap of faith. Can I make a full-time career out of doing this?
That's how it went. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you still work for the government doing that position?
No,
it was just the 1-year term.
1-year contract, yeah. There is a new Saskatchewaner now, and so it just rotates every year. They hire a new person.
That's really neat.
It's incredible in terms of marketing. Like, it's a very wonderful program.
Oh yeah, it would be, wouldn't it?
And it's a lot of fun.
What a great way to launch a blog, right? Wow, that's really neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you an impossible question now.
Yeah.
Because how would you choose? But you have been to 60 countries, 7 continents.
Yeah.
Can you pick a few of your favorite experiences? Have fun with that one.
I say, like, everywhere has been amazing, or if it was difficult, it was great lessons learned, or if it was, like, unfortunate, it's a good story.
Okay, good point.
But I usually say I really liked Madagascar. I spent a month traveling. Most of my travel has been solo, but I spent a month traveling on my own there, and it was really challenging, but it was also really rewarding, because it's just, and I'm into nature, outdoor adventure activities. It's kind of my specialty, and like some of the national parks that are world class, and see 1,000 people per year.
Wow.
Yeah, but I also really love New Zealand. That's where I felt like I really discovered who I actually was, versus just doing the standard path everybody else did. I actually took some time, said yes to everything, and decided what I really liked and didn't like.
Okay.
So New Zealand was very transformative for me in that first year of travel. And then I lived in the Galapagos Islands for 2 months. I'm a very passionate scuba diver.
Oh, wow.
And
that's
so,
awesome.
yeah, I pursued my dive masters living in the Galapagos. And every day you got to scuba dive with a school of, or 30 hammerhead sharks. And
okay. That was
dangerous.
Awesome until that point.
They're not dangerous at all.
Yeah, right. Right.
They're not.
Sharks, not dangerous. Okay. I'll take your word for it. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned unfortunate incidents that became a good story. I travel a lot for work, and you know what? The more you do anything, the more you're out and about, the more experiences you have, good and bad.
Yeah.
I've had, fortunately, actually very good experiences, but you just once in a while have an experience.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those that you obviously live to tell about?
For the most part, like, travel has been 99% wonderful. Like, I have, touch wood, never been robbed or anything like that. I always kept a close eye on my bag. Sometimes you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I was actually climbing Cotopaxi in Ecuador. So it's a really cool, it's an equatorial volcanic glacier.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on there. And it's also, it's about as high as Kilimanjaro in Africa. So it's 5,800 and I think 5,890. Yeah, it's just under 6,000 meters above sea level. And 40% of people who try to hike it don't make it. They turn around and come back down, because it's like you're dealing with altitude sickness. You hike it overnight because that's when the ice is most stable. And yeah,
sorry, I thought I was brave listening to you. I'm like, okay.
And so I was really determined to do it. I hired my own guide to make sure that nobody else that came with us would stop us from summiting unless it was my own limitations that stopped us.
Okay.
And it was a really intense night. I was suffering some slight altitude sickness. I was struggling to eat, and you need food for energy. And it was really cold. My water bottle froze on me. That's how cold it was. And in the middle of the night, there was an avalanche just to the left of us.
Okay.
And it's dark out, and you could just hear this big thundering. And people have died on Cotopaxi. So it is very serious, right? Like, it's no joke. And so that was just a moment where you're like, oh, okay.
I'm a lucky one today, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't on us, and we weren't in it, and I trust my guide, and he had summited it, hundreds of times, and then not summited it hundreds more times because his clients couldn't make it up. But then it was also incredible. We did get to the summit. I didn't make it for the sunrise.
Good for you.
I was one of the last ones to get up there, but there was only a handful of us.
Who cares? You made it.
Totally. And all night you saw people's headlamps coming back down the mountain.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, and then when we were standing up there, people had already started to go down, and my guide turned to me and he said, how funny would it be if there's a volcano in the distance that's quite active? He's like, how funny would it be if it started erupting? So I'm literally standing on an active volcano looking into the crater of it at almost 6,000 meters above sea level, the highest I had ever been with my feet still on the ground to the stars, right? And in the distance, this volcano starts erupting.
Did it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So you could see kind of the smoke and ashes in the skyline. So it's just kind of a wild experience.
Can't top that, anybody.
Right?
That's an amazing experience.
Yeah, and it was wonderful, and it was exhausting and difficult and hard, and I think I lost, a couple toenails because we were wearing
I don't even know you, and I'm so proud of you. That's amazing.
And yeah, it was, the boots didn't fit perfectly because they were rented, and going down, it was just so much. I was so exhausted that I would sit and slide, and my guide would run next to me, sliding down the side of this. Yeah, but that was, it was an incredible experience. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Where do we go from there? Actually, I do want to ask you. So, did you have an opportunity at all to visit any farms anywhere around the world? Come up?
I have a little bit.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just tours. I know my parents travel with me a lot too. They've met me. I've been to 6 continents with my mom. My dad, he's a little bit more of a homebody, but we were actually just out in Atlantic Canada together. It was a work trip for me, but we tacked on personal days. And so we went to Chile a couple years ago, and my dad loves to see other farms. We always try to drive out in the countryside.
Total farmer holiday.
Totally.
That's why I'm asking. Yes.
And so, there they have lots of different agriculture and, lots of fruits and vegetables, and they have their wine region. So we toured wineries, and even in Madagascar, looking at agriculture there, it's very different from what it is in Canada, even just in terms of soil health, right?
Okay.
We have some of the healthiest soils here in Canada, and they're using these animals called zebu, and they're kind of a cross between an oxen and cattle, right?
Oh, wow.
It's kind of their own version of it, and not only do they eat them, but they still pull plows. So you'd see them, plowing the fields, and and just very, very, very different agriculture than what we do here. And
very primitive.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it makes you appreciate the technology that we have today in Canada, and how even when my dad talks about it, being out in an open cab tractor, and now you look at GPS that can help you steer and really make sure that precision.
The things we already take for granted on our farms. Yeah. Could you imagine if they came over here? They would probably fall over just from the technology in our soil and all the things. I mean, we appreciate what we have, yes, but when it's your norm, you tend to take it for granted,
totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And even you see lots of rice paddies, and you see everybody out working in them, and it's really cool to see different styles of agriculture, even across Canada, right? So I was just in Prince Edward Island, and I'm I know nothing about potatoes. Eat them all the time. Grew up with a huge garden of potatoes, but in terms of growing potatoes, it was just cool to be out there.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask is I love farming. We farm. I didn't grow up on a farm, but my grandparents farmed, so I just always loved it and wanted to be a farmer. When we go on holidays, we tend to do a lot of farm-related stuff. Yeah. Anthony's a farmer, and I just really enjoy it. So if I was to tour the world, I would try and incorporate farms from all the different countries in, because honestly, that's what I love.
And food feeds the world, right? It is the base of everything in any country you ever go to is food, and how people connect and communicate around food too. Yeah.
That is so awesome. I don't even want to leave the subject of traveling because now I'm in Europe right now. So thanks for that. But we're going to come back around, and you have so much experience blogging and using social media to tell your story. Like you said, you're an educator.
Yep.
Different than what you thought you were going to be, but probably right where you're meant to be. So that is so cool. Can you chat with us a little bit, especially for our audience? We have so many pressures nowadays to tell our story, and I want to hear your thoughts on using social media to tell our story as farmers.
Yes, so social media is such an incredibly powerful tool. You potentially have an unlimited audience that you can reach out to, right?
Yeah.
And I think when using social media, the most important thing is just to always remember to be authentic. I think that's like the number one thing I always try to do with my channels is just, that is me. What you see online, that is genuinely me. Again, it's, you know, like I make sure things look lovely, right? It's not me when I first wake up in the morning, but you know, and I think if you are a farmer who is willing to use social media that way, like get on there, send out a couple tweets, share what you're doing, share what it's really like. If you're going out to check the cows, do a Facebook Live video, or, you know, put it out on Twitter. I know the ag industry is big on Twitter, and you're going to get so much support, and you're going to get people who have never been able to have that experience. And like, even for me to go to a cattle farm, I didn't grow up on that. I grew up in a grain farm. It's different. So I'm like, that's cool. I learned something. Yeah. Whereas I could show somebody how to use a combine, and it's a huge piece of equipment. It's impressive. And so you can educate that way by just showing your everyday moments. So it doesn't have to be highly polished, or you don't need all the lights and mics and cameras. Our cell phones are incredibly powerful. Yeah. And so use that to your advantage.
You know, it's funny you say that, a Facebook Live. I farm, we're cattle farmers in southeast Manitoba, and I love my cows. So I'll go out on the quad when the girls are calving or checking them throughout the year. And the one day, I had never done it before. And I was still at the point of trying to get comfortable on social media, because it does take a fair bit of courage to turn that camera on you versus, ooh, the sunset, right? That's easy. But to turn it this way, I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to do a Facebook Live while I'm checking my cows. So I sat on my quad, and of course my pets were all coming to visit me. So it just really actually turned out to be such a great experience. And I know my friends and family, and a lot of them grew up on farms when they were young, but then moved away to the city. They're fascinated, and people love to see that stuff,
and
right?
It's real life. It's as raw and as unfiltered as it gets. Like, that is you doing something you love every day and caring for your animals. And I think when people can see that, they can understand a little bit more about what agriculture is really about.
Yeah. And you know what? We need that. Again, you hear this, that the consumers don't trust farmers, but a lot of the studies are showing that consumers do trust us, but they just want to know. They're asking questions and looking because they want to know.
They're curious.
They're curious, and there is such a movement to know. People are really not taking food for granted. It's kind of a bit of a culture now, and they want to know where it came from and that experience, right?
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is it's an experience for them. So not every farm can offer it, but if you can, you know, if you have You Pick orchards, that's inviting people to come to your farm to see it and experience it, and they can have that personal connection with it now. And I think that's so powerful in terms of sharing, you know, our message about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why every choice we make on our farms every day is all an important one that we genuinely care about.
I love it. I was on a little agriculture tour in November based around an annual event for an organization I'm part of. And we went to a co-op, and we went to a greenhouse. And this one really struck me on how much consumers want to know about how things are grown, how stuff gets into the stores. So I went to this greenhouse, and they're a multi-generation greenhouse from Holland, I believe, and they've grown really big, and they're almost into that tourism part.
Agritourism.
And the annuals, when flowers come in May and June, that used to be the biggest part of their business, but it's actually really changed. And about 40% of their revenue comes from houseplants. Amazing. Which was a tiny part of their business. But 40% of their revenue comes from houseplants, from people in the city. They're not far from Toronto. So people come out, they have a nice cafe, it's a day experience. They get to be in a greenhouse in the middle of winter, and they want to come out and get a plant.
And take it home. Yep.
And it's just a bit of a culture, right? So when he said that, I really realized how much of an opportunity agriculture has to share our story.
Oh, totally.
Right?
And agritourism is growing. Even I know back in Saskatchewan, there's this wonderful lodge. So they are an active grain farm. So they are out there operating all year. Well, there's always
in the
things
seasons,
to do, yes, but there's still things to do in the wintertime. And so what they've done is you can stay at their lodge, which is beautiful, but they've actually converted a grain bin into a luxury overnight accommodation. And like when I say luxury, like it's like a handmade maple bed, 2 chandeliers, 2 fireplaces, Italian Carrara marble. But the coolest part is not only do you get to go stay in this, I think it's a 2,800 bushel grain bin, you can stay overnight, but they will actually take you out for a ride on whatever equipment they're using that day. So if they're out seeding or if they're out harvesting, and you can go ride along and see what it's like. That is so impactful.
Wow.
You know?
I don't know if you're seeing the excitement in my face. The Tracy that likes to take farming holidays, I might be going to Saskatchewan for my summer holidays.
It's amazing. It's such an incredible place.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And it's just really cool how they've welcomed, you know, the community and travelers and tourists into their farmyard. Like you drive in, you meet their cats, you meet their dog, you know, you see their farmhouse, and they have the lodge and the bin, and they have all the bins, like the working bins behind, and the equipment, and you can go, they have like a little slough, I guess, that you can go out and have a picnic at. You know, like they have like a picnic table. With the sun setting, and it's really quite beautiful.
Well, hey, I do enjoy my farm sunsets, but I'm interested in the grain bin and staying there. That would be fantastic. But for anybody coming from the city, that would just be an amazing experience, wouldn't it?
Totally. New, different, and exciting. And like right here at home in Canada.
Who would have known?
Yeah.
I guess you know all the hot spots, right?
A few hidden gems.
Yeah. So what are you up to these days?
So lots of travel across Canada, which is great because I spent so much time seeing the world that I had actually never been further east in Canada, aside from Brandon, Manitoba, until like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And then now in the last month, I think I've been to 8 provinces. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I work with lots of different tourism boards. So I'm actually joining up with Tourism Quebec and going out for a week trip there. And then this summer, I'm going to have a trip actually for 3 weeks back in Manitoba here, doing some exploring and then creating content off of it. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, really fun things.
You have a great job.
It's pretty cool.
You have a great life. I love it. Right on. So we'll wrap the interview up. I want to get you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you have traveled the world, and I truly believe that travel just adds so much to a person's life, and it has helped me grow, right? You just see different people, different cultures. It's just mind-boggling. So can you share any words of wisdom, maybe the biggest takeaway you've had from travel?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned is that when things are different, it doesn't make it right or wrong. They're just different. And if you can approach it with curiosity instead of fear, it makes the conversation you might have completely different. And so you might feel weird and uncomfortable, but if you just say, hey, this is new to me. I don't know how to eat this food. I don't know how you guys do this. Can you tell me and show me and share with me? And people are more than happy. It's like going to a farm and asking a farmer about his farm. He's going to be more than happy to share it with you. And it's just like that anywhere else in the world. If it's something new or different, just ask, because people will share that information with you.
That is amazing words of wisdom. And it's funny you said that, because just yesterday I was thinking about some individuals that were attacking a farmer on social media. And I thought to myself, I wonder how much of them they have good intentions, but instead of approaching farmers with curiosity and asking questions, they're on the fearful attack. And then, of course, if somebody comes at you that way, farmers get defensive. And I said, I wonder how much How many of them, of course, some don't have good intentions, but I truly believe a majority of them probably do have good intentions.
And they're coming from different perspectives, and I found one of the easiest ways to build a conversation, and like a positive conversation about it, if somebody's even negatively attacking you, all you have to say is, hey, like that's really interesting you feel that way. I'm genuinely curious to learn more about why you feel that way and where that's coming from, so I can understand better. And then immediately they're like, oh, this person's not being defensive. They now want to hear my story, because obviously there's something that's causing them to respond in the way they did. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but I found it's been really effective.
That would.
To just say, hey, I'm curious why you, like why do you feel that way?
That would just drop the guards, right?
Yeah.
Very smart.
Yeah, and then you make it about them.
Yeah. Clever. Those are amazing words of wisdom. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If individuals in our audience, if they're not already following you, how can they connect with you?
Yes, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you can usually search The Lost Girls Guide. On Twitter, it's just Lost Girls Guide, or find me at thelostgirlsguide.com.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It was a blast. And thank you guys for joining us. I am sure you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I am just in La La Land thinking about travel now. So thanks again. Thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, guys.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.